learn with me what the hell is going on. Someone needs to get this message to the defense. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Have to use brain power. Let me help out Dr. Russell here.
Many people suffer from what's called an acute grief reaction.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
The investigation was done with honor, integrity, and all the evidence pointed in one direction only.
Buchanan was so defensive and unable to throw Proctor under the bus because he loved him.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Then we add what we know about Michael Proctor. This guy is just the world's biggest. On every level that a person could be, between incompetence and stupidity, Michael Proctor wins the award for a combination of both. They killed him. Who are all the powers that be? Look at the smile on his face. That's what happened. That's what happened. So she doesn't actually want them to get here quickly, and that's the reason why she doesn't say there's an officer down. Meet the Bar Association of Norfolk County's Person of the Year.
I routinely do when I work with attorneys, okay? I prepare this on my own.
Oh my God. See? You see it? It is undeniable.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Holy you guys. Build some way to feed her ego. So if you have absolutely nothing to do with the death of John O'Keefe, why start crying on the stand? Hank Brennan deserves an award for being the most unlikable human being that the world has ever seen. Consciousness of guilt. I would really like somebody to do the right thing in this case.
Sergeant Barrows, is this the condition of the right rear taillight?
Absolutely not.
At no point do you wake up or go outside and say to somebody, why are you here? What if there was a gunman? Because you don't know. How do I know? There's 40 cops in front of my very small front yard. That's the bedroom window. Here's Sonny. Say hi, everybody. Here's my friend. Hello. Sonny barks if you walk by my window and sneeze.
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
I wasn't going to record a video today, but then I stumbled upon this. Peter met with Adam Lally for lunch. During this lunch, Adam Lally told Peter that he knows the four-person... Oh, my God. This is not good.
Now you're starting to see the blurs easier.
You see those two blurs?
Are moving around.
She absolutely knows it would not be Karen Reed's defense team that she'd have to worry about. It would be the defense who she lied to.
Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
A juror explaining why she voted to acquit Karen Reed of that second-degree murder charge for allegedly ramming her SUV into John O'Keefe during a blizzard in 2022.
A collision did not occur. I can't assess the motive to this sloppy police investigation.
And the toughest moment for her? Hearing the derogatory text messages about Reed sent by lead homicide investigator Michael Proctor just hours after he got the case.
Whatever timestamp was on that deleted wall file is the time that she did that search. And she deleted it. Let's make sure and pin it on this girl who I hope kills herself. That's a class act. You are a class act, Michael Proctor. Definitely someone should give you a gun and a badge. 100% sure that Karen did not do this.
Number one is I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally for almost 4 years. And the second thing I want to say is no one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have.
How dare they?
God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the I Don't Belong Here show, and I'm your host, Samantha Beningo. I am a behavioral scientist, a career psychotherapist, a 6-year PhD candidate in clinical psychology, a master's level psychologist and counselor. And today we are here returning to Canton, Massachusetts with our special guest, Nan Gallagher, to discuss all of the legal activity swirling around in Canton, in Norfolk County, because there is plenty of it. So I'm so excited to have Nan. She has been, there's like a group of attorneys that have really tracked this case, the Karen Reed cases, from the beginning. And, Mark Betterow is another one, Nan Gallagher, of course. And so if you're like a Karen Reed freak fan, like I, of course, am, these folks have been kind of like in our living rooms with us for a long time. So this is going to be a very exciting hour for me. I can't wait. Very exciting. And so without further ado, I think we have Nan and we're ready to bring her on because I don't want to waste 1 second of her time. So hopefully we don't have any problems doing this. Let's see, Nan. There she is. Yay. Hi.
Hey, how are you? I had some literally last minute computer issues. So how are you doing? It's so nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you so much for doing this, for coming on with me. This is really, really exciting. I know it's September, like the kids back to school week, right? So it's crazy.
It is. My kids went back last week and now they're in the thick of it this week. So, and it's really, really a pleasure to meet you. I've been a huge fan of your channel, and everybody that I encounter always speaks so highly of you. And I also have a personal affinity just because of what you do for a living. So,
well,
right?
I'm honored
lawyer,
to hear that.
clinical psychologist.
That's
I love
right.
it.
That's right. So, and that's what I wanted to start with because, I feel like I have seen you and your analysis since the very beginning, but I missed the story before that. Like, how did you end up kind of tracking the case, the Karen Reed stuff? Because I feel like you've been with it from the very start.
I have, it's funny. I have been behind the scenes from what I would consider the very start. So, but I only entered a more public role and started speaking out in January of this year.
Okay.
But for me, I'm a huge true crime fanatic, and was always interested in all the different cases that I get my hands on. And then the Karen Reed case, I had learned a little bit about it, which really did not pique my interest before Aidan Kearney started publishing in April of 2023. But once he did, and I had never heard of him, someone had actually passed along his premiere article on this case. And I was like, ooh, I'm definitely going to sink my teeth into it. And then once I did, I love just a good mystery. I love when things don't make sense. I want to try to make things make sense. That's one of my sayings in my household and in my law practice. I say, make it make sense. So once I started following him and I read all of the filings of Karen's defense team, I was hooked. And I wrote all the chats in a lot, not all of the chats, but most of the chats in a lot of the YouTube content creators sphere. And I fell in love with the mystery, and I was really offended at all of the police misconduct and all of the missteps of the prosecution, which was just ridiculous. So around January of this year, a lawyer from Texas, I don't know her name, but she made a donation to Turtle Boy and donated 1 billable hour towards his defense fund. And I was like, well, I can do that. I was always watching his program. So I donated 1 billable hour, and he happened to kind of notice. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he and I spoke.
Oh, interesting.
I don't remember if I spoke to him at that time or we just communicated back and forth, but it became clear, like I had some things to say on the case. And then I appeared for the first time on The Young Jerks with Mike Crawford, and it kind of blew up. So.
Wow, that's a great story. I didn't know any of that. The beginning is super familiar. I get all of that, right? But I didn't know that that's how you kind of started to be more of a public voice. I just kind of figured you'd always been there.
I feel like, it's one of those things, people think I'm hanging around too long on this case, but, there's so many different nuances after the verdict. And I was, by the way, there for the verdict. It just so happened, I'm from New Jersey, but it just so happened in one of the trips that I had planned up to Boston, I was like, ooh, this might align with jury deliberations. And I was there for the day before and the day of the verdict.
Wow.
And the feeling that I got to experience then, and that had been like my third or fourth trip up, standing with boots on the ground, and it just it electrified me. Yeah.
And it's a special group, right? I was there Monday of that week.
Oh, were you?
Yes, I got to be there too, right? And so it's funny, I'm from New Jersey originally also. I didn't know that you were from New Jersey.
Yeah.
So Bergen County in the house.
Me too.
Oh, that's so funny. Wow. Interesting.
I saw an area code on your phone number. I said, we got to talk.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm in New York City now, but I'm from Bergen County. That's really funny. I did not know.
We're going to chat offline about this.
I know.
So we don't
we have
dox each
so
other.
much in common. It's crazy, right? It's so funny.
Yes.
Had you had ties to Boston? Like
I have.
Yes. Okay.
Well, Boston has always been my favorite city, despite living a stone's throw out of Manhattan. And I had gone to school in Manhattan. I went to college in the Bronx. I went to law school in New York City. And once I became a lawyer back in 2001, shortly after that, I started working for a national law firm who's headquartered in Boston. So for the last 20 plus years of my practice, well, that's not true. For the years I was working with that firm, I was going up to Boston regularly, and I fell in love with it. And then thereafter, I just kept going. So I at the time of this trial, I had usually just been going up maybe 2 or 3 times a year. And now, I mean, it's exponentially more. And I have another trip planned imminently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's like an adopted home, really.
It is. I've been saying, like, I just fell in love with the people up there, and just to dispel some rumors that go around. No, I'm not going to be running for district attorney of Norfolk County. That was a joke. I enjoy my law practice. I do healthcare law in New Jersey and New York, and it's just it keeps me sustained down here. But I will always return to New England because I love it. My heart is there.
That makes sense. So that's a little tragic for us because I'm sure you'd be amazing at it. But I get it. Appreciate you clearing that up. I actually did hear that, so it's funny that you mentioned it.
Yes, some people have decided to run with that, and that's not why I speak out on this case or the aftermath with Proctor and all of the charges that are stemming against Aidan Kearney. Like, I'm very interested in the corruption.
Right.
And it's all converging. And as it trickles down into these other cases like Miles King, Brian Walsh, all of it is so interrelated. Sandra Birchmore. These are cases that, it's like catching lightning in a bottle, getting them all to converge now, because now that they all are converging and on the wings of the successful verdict for Karen, there might be able to be some positive changes that can be implemented, as opposed to if it happened more sporadically. So,
yep.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I wanted to talk to you about today, right? So we have Proctor's appeal, and after watching, at first I just laughed at it. I had an idea.
Pardon me 1 second, by the way, Samantha. I'm listening to you, but I'm hooking up. I'm literally just typing something into my other computer. Keep talking to me.
No problem. So that's my thought, right? Like, with this appeal, my first thought was, okay, there's no way. It'd be political suicide for the Massachusetts State Police to hire him back. But then I listened to the first 2 days and I started to get a little nervous because I don't understand the legality of it. I don't understand, like, what exactly is the point of this hearing, right? Is it so that they can put up the evidence that supports the investigative findings, or is it to retry the whole thing, like the whole case?
with Proctor and his and that's probably worth pointing out too, in that one of the things that I do in my practice, which makes me a little bit different than some of the other law tubers, is that I do, and it makes me no better than them, but I do criminal defense, I do civil law, and I do administrative law. And what Proctor is going through now is an administrative proceeding. So once he got terminated, he has certain remedies that he must exhaust if he's going to ever file some lawsuit, which he will lose, by the way, but he has to kind of exhaust his remedies before he can do anything to try to recover either money damages or his job back, some type of wrongful termination. So he's going through his paces now of, let's make sure that this termination passes muster. And I think that while I respect his right and anyone's right to exhaust their remedies, their administrative remedies, I think it's ridiculous that he's doing this, because as we go through that hearing, and I'd be lying to your audience if I said I saw all of it, but I catch it, when I'm driving or when I'm running. But as he goes through this process, he's literally making the case for why he was terminated. He's sitting there in front of his parents, having text messages, these horrible text messages read back as if he's the aggrieved party, as if he's done something wrong. He's got a lawyer, and I don't like to malign any lawyers. He has a good lawyer, but he's got a lawyer who's trying to say that his privacy has been invaded, his private communications with his friends, which I dare say they're all a bunch of chumps. That's my personal opinion and not that of the channel. But, he's got these text messages where he's sharing not only confidential health information, but investigative strategy and findings on, within hours. What was it, like within 16 or less hours of the actual alleged incident? And what he's doing by exhausting these administrative remedies is emphasizing the right reasons why he was terminated. Plus, there were other reasons too. He was terminated because he went out to the Cape with Kevin Albert, and they were essentially using company time and taking overtime at the time, and a weapon was lost, and there was alcohol being consumed while on duty. There was a whole list of reasons. But this hearing, the vibe I'm getting is that this, I don't know what her title would be called, but she's essentially the hearing officer, the woman who's running the proceeding, and she's reaching conclusions without saying them. And she's kind of saying, this was the right decision. So we'll go through the steps, because he has due process rights, as everyone does, to exhaust their administrative remedies. But ultimately, she's going to affirm the decision to terminate him. And I'm happy. And someone else from New Jersey, Colonel Noble, who was brought up there to run the Massachusetts State Police, he made the right decision to kind of pull this guy off a stage left, because he's a risk.
Absolutely.
And there's other content creators I've spoken to who are of the opinion, like, this is not a one-off for Michael Proctor. This is a pattern of behavior where he's overstepped, shared information, crossed lines, mistreated defendants or subjects of an investigation before they even became defendants. This is a type of pattern that needs to be broken early on. And I'm sure you see that in your practice as well, because if you allow these nefarious ways of comporting oneself to continue, all you're doing is enabling that type of behavior. And to identify bad behaviors as early as you can, which the ship has sailed, in my opinion.
Of course.
With Proctor, the only way to remedy that is to make sure that he's not wearing a badge and carrying a weapon.
Right. And that's the thing that's always struck me with this, is that I believe he really doesn't think that what he did is wrong, which speaks to the systemic problem. To me, he doesn't really see. I mean, he was on some of those text messages were with his bosses, more than one supervisor, right? So I think to your point, it's not even just his pattern of behavior, but it's this larger systemic pattern of behavior
Yes.
that he was a symptom of, obviously.
Yes, and the systemic problems there, the superiors, whether it was Buchanan or
Mhm.
Fanning or Tully, whomever, and I'm missing people, but whomever was allowing these behaviors to persist, whether it's the inappropriate text messaging and the conduct that he was text messaging about, like searching through phones for inappropriate images, etc., or just making really awful. I don't think there's any better adjective statements about a subject or a potential subject of an investigation. By doing that and the superiors allowing that, or in fact, I know Buchanan, gave a thumbs up emoji, which in our day and age now, these are loaded emojis. You're his superior and you're liking what he's writing. And therefore you are touting it and saying it's permissible to do that. You're not disciplining him. You're not saying, hey, this isn't appropriate. So by doing that, all you're doing is festering the systemic problems that exist there. And I know that some of these higher ups have received discipline of a de minimis nature. Yeah, the old discipline.
Right.
Whether it's lost a few vacation days or there's been some demotions, which I'd be lying if I could say they were appreciable title changes or demotions. There's been transfers from the prosecutor's office to other locales, of which I don't know offhand. And these are not, in my opinion, hitting the mark. And when you don't hit the mark and you don't raise the level of concern that meets the level of severity and the ramifications, it's like the punishment has to fit the crime. And in this instance, all that's been happening is a slap on the wrist. So with Proctor, my forecast is he's going to have his termination affirmed at this higher administrative level. And then he's going to have exhausted his remedies, and he'd be a fool to do it. But it sounds like he may try to file a civil lawsuit, which would, we say, sound in wrongful termination, and he will lose that. So I think he'd be better invested in trying to find an alternate career path, one in which other citizens' constitutional rights are not involved.
That's right. So I have a question. Does the fact that these guys did not have anywhere near a comparable punishment, does that bolster his argument in any way, shape, or form?
It does bolster his argument. That's a great question, because if he's going to, if Proctor is going to argue things like, well, look, this one was transferred, or this one lost 3 vacation days, or this one said this or that. And I apologize. It's been a couple of months since I was in deep with who got what punishment.
Yeah.
But if he's going to argue that they received lesser sentences, then that is a factor that this hearing officer can consider. So it's a persuasive argument. But at the same time, there is no limit in the police disciplinary structure. There's no limit to more discipline being imposed on these officers. So while one may have lost a few vacation days, one may have lost a title, one might have been transferred, or more than one, there's more discipline that can come thereafter or hereafter if there's further investigation into it, which I think there should be. And that's why when you were talking about what some of the things you wanted to discuss on your show, I was like, I'm all for it, because if 1 or 2 people listen and tell a friend and talk about the corruption and the misapplication of discipline at the police level up there, which is happening everywhere,
right?
Then maybe we can start being a small part of changing hearts and minds and shifting the paradigm to the police are to protect and serve, but they're to do so honorably and with integrity. And no matter who testified at Karen Reed's trial saying there was honor or integrity in her investigation.
Mhm.
I do feel that through their verdict, the jury felt otherwise. And now all eyes are on law enforcement and the prosecutor.
Hmm. Yeah. So, wow, you just said a lot right there.
I did.
There's so much with this, right? So, I guess one of the things that kind of keeps coming up for me. So I saw you, which is what made me think of having this conversation with you. I saw you with LTL Media go over the report of Proctor, like his internal affairs investigation,
Yes.
right? And there was a lot in there that made my head pop off because, right,
Me too.
they give him basically a pass on his relationships issues, saying that they found him to be honest in the way that he presented his relationships, which is completely false. So, and there's other things too, but that was the one that just really upset me because, for example, this is just one example. Like he wrote Colin Albert out of 34 Fairview Road completely, and
Yep.
had there not been all of our efforts and focus on it, Colin Albert would have nobody would have known he was ever at 34 Fairview because of the relationship, right?
How disturbing.
Oh, so
Right?
upsetting. So
I
upsetting.
know.
So how can they say, how do you argue like with a straight face that relationship didn't impact or affect the outcome of the investigation?
It's so interesting that you ask that because the way I have looked at that internal affairs report, and when I was on LTL's stream, that was like I was receiving that real time. He had flipped me the report just before we went live, and I was like, wait a minute. Okay, I see the problems with Proctor, but wait, he conducted himself with honesty on this or that. Like whomever drafted, I don't remember his name, but he's been a primary witness at the administrative hearing. But the officer who prepared and conducted the investigation and prepared the report, which actually is a very good report. I thought he did a very good job. I cannot understand why there was any compliment of the honesty that that Proctor, not doctor, my profession is seeping in, but that Proctor exhibited. And there was something else.
Unbelievable.
I think that they found in that IA report that there was nothing inappropriate with the payment or compensation for overtime while he was out on the Cape with Kevin Albert, and they were kind of off duty consuming alcohol. This was the infamous night where the weapon was mishandled or lost. And if I were a taxpayer up there and I'm one down here, I know you are, I'd be a little annoyed that there were officers having a good time on my dime. So that finding in that report, which has been a few weeks now since I read it, that bothered me that they didn't find, while they identified that he was receiving overtime, they didn't reach a finding that this was improper. And I don't purport to know all that an officer is allowed to do while on the clock. I mean, people have to eat, people have to use the restroom, people have, lives, and it's okay to look at a phone. So I know that there's probably a balance that is struck with an officer receiving payment. You're not always have to be working every second of the day. But once I hear that you're out and about consuming alcohol to the point where weapons are lost, I pause and say, I think there might be a little problem here. But the report nonetheless is very strong. And there's no way he's going to get this reversed. And the fact that Proctor is arguing his privacy has been violated or he hasn't received all of the discovery that he wants. And we can talk about discovery if you or your audience has questions. But the fact that you have former Trooper Proctor, his attorney, arguing we don't have everything we need
crazy
to advance our rights, it's crazy. It's also hypocritical because even in the Miles King case, You have that's kind of pending now. It looks like Proctor sat on search warrant affidavits and didn't hand them over to prosecutor Adam Lally for years. For years. And in Karen's case, Karen had to fight with her team tooth and nail just to get the basic elements of her own discovery, which is why fundraising, in my opinion, was so important for her, because these little battles that lawyers have to wage just to get what they're supposed to be entitled to.
Unbelievable.
And it's one of the reasons why this case and these others interest me so greatly, because of the fighting that they have to do to get the things that they normally would be expected to receive.
Yeah, and the power that this case just highlighted the power of the prosecutor's office. They just have this open purse. They can, they can put effort into a case or not. They can absolutely, get around discovery. It's like they can take their time. They can ignore requests for months and months. They can just keep kicking the can down the road endlessly. And there's no recourse at all.
None. I know. And that's why I love that channels like you will follow these cases and try to because you're not lawyers. You're looking at this saying, is this how it's supposed to work? Like, why would prosecutors be sitting on evidence for months and years and or handing over faulty evidence or incomplete evidence or no metadata when metadata matters, or inverted videos, pieces of videos missing? Can you imagine if that were you sitting in Karen's chair, or her family sitting behind her saying, what's going on here? It's gaslighting to the extreme, which I'm sure in your profession you can really
Oh my
scoop up.
God. Well, and then to have him do this kind of really open, obnoxious appeal, and then to go on, whatever, ABC, and talk about how he's the victim. It's like this man clearly deleted videos. He deleted videos. We even during the second trial had Buchanan saying the only person that they had metadata that proved that the only person who had access to those videos to delete them would have been Michael Proctor. So there was no other option for who could have deleted videos, right? So, and then
they had to throw him under the bus. I'm sorry to interrupt you. They had to throw him under the bus in trial 2.0. There had to be a reason why certain pieces of evidence weren't handed over, or why video didn't make it from point A to point B. So as Hank Brennan prosecuted trial 2.0, which I think he did a bad job. I've heard some people say, oh, he did a great job. No, he didn't. I thought he was, my opinion, I did not think he was effective from the start. I think it was a mistake for Michael Morrissey to engage him in the first place.
100%.
And as he went through the trial, I saw, and I'm not alone, many people were starting to see, they were waiting to see if they were going to call Proctor in the case in chief. But then you started to see the trend of casting him by the wayside as roadkill. They needed a sacrificial lamb to explain away some of the ineptitude of that investigation.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what he was. He was their sacrificial lamb. He was also probably in the end what gets Karen Reed off, because he was the boogeyman, right?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, it was, you hear the jurors and all they spoke about after was the police investigation, the shoddy police investigation. And that's the other thing about this report too that upset me, was they're legitimizing the investigation when the truth is really Proctor didn't ever investigate this case. They just ran with Karen Reed right out of the gate. From the jump. It's just,
I know.
insane.
Isn't it crazy? Like, there was no investigation yet from 2022 to 2025, 2 trials, both of which should have never happened. These prosecutions should have never happened. But then you think about the cost to all of the taxpayers with all of the experts, and it was heavily costly, or more costly in trial 2.0. But just the cost of, man, why am I forgetting the name of them now? The
Aperture.
Aperture. Yes, I was going to say ARCA, but they're the good ones.
Yeah, right,
Aperture.
Yeah.
You know, that was just a big black hole of throwing wasted money in.
Unbelievable.
Dollar after dollar. And there was no investigation. The mind was made up before they even explored any other option. They didn't explore any other option. There's a retired or former MSP officer, Todd McGee, who often appears on LTL's program. And he talks about the fact that you need to trust but verify the people that you're questioning and investigating. And as you go through an investigation, and I don't even want to sound like I'm stealing his thunder, because this is the way Todd McGee's mind works as an investigator. As you go through a robust investigation, the innocent get more innocent and the guiltier get more guilty. So, I probably botched it. So Todd, if you're watching, show grace. But you explore all the avenues so you can say, no, that's not the way it works. That's why they should have looked at Colin Albert, who just got written out of the equation. They should have separated the witnesses. They should have explored the Higgins, the underlying Higgins love interest, or at least found out what those text messages said in a way that was independent and not accepting ones that he curated himself. Maybe they should have looked at his phone independently, explored Jen McCabe's phone independently, not given her the ability and the opportunity to editorialize what text messages she was going to remove. Like, she removed communications with her children. While as a mother, I can understand if you have minor children, maybe you don't want the police looking at your communications with them. However, one of those children was at the alleged crime scene and was involved with witnesses, at least one, at the crime scene that evening. So where were those communications? I could go on and on. This case is the gift that keeps on giving. And I don't mean any disrespect to Officer O'Keefe or to Karen when I talk about it that way.
No, of course, right? I mean, that's kind of what I always say. If you just pull a thread with this case, I mean, you're down a rabbit hole that is now hours and days down a different thread, right? And it just never ends. I mean, even when I was going back today to prepare for this discussion, I was just listening through casually the hearing, the Proctor hearing, and I heard again for like the 80,000th millionth time the text conversation, Alan Jackson's cross. Just, I mean, how many times have I heard that back and forth with Proctor? And I heard something for the first time differently, which is, so he texts his sister very early on in the investigation. So that day, January 29th, 2022, which is my sister's birthday, so I'll never forget it as long as I'm alive. That morning, really early, Proctor texts his sister and he tells her that he's got, I forget, DOA or something, somebody.
Right.
You know. It's clear that there was no news yet about the case. It's clear that he's telling his sister about it. And then it's immediately following his interview with Jen McCabe. And he says, oh, Jennifer McCabe says she knows you. And in that interaction, the Courtney says, oh, yeah, she's really good friends with Julie Albert, who's, you know, Julie Albert and Nicole Albert, who's married to Brian Albert.
Yep.
So sister lays that out, but he hasn't yet told her that Brian Albert is the house where this incident has happened. So what it does is it highlights that Proctor knows Brian Albert.
Yep.
And instead of telling the truth about that, he lies about the whole thing and says, oh, she had already seen news about it. And that's what she's referencing. I mean, this man lies on, I swear, and there's a lot of contenders for lying on the stand in these two trials, but Proctor, almost everything he says is a lie. And that is another sort of really upsetting piece where that's just standard operating procedure. It's clear that he doesn't think anything of just egregious lying the entire time.
Right. And I'm sure in your practice and in your field of study, you reach deductions about people where, you're asking them questions, they're talking about whatever the subject matter is, you're making your own conclusions as to whether they're being forthcoming, credible, trustworthy. If you find that someone you're speaking to is not forthcoming, credible, and trustworthy, you then start to doubt the veracity of everything else they're telling you.
Of course.
And there is actually a jury charge for that in all states. We know it colloquially as false in one, false in all, which essentially means that a jury is entitled to determine if someone is lying. If they've concluded someone has lied about one thing, they are justified in concluding that they're lying or untrustworthy about all things. And that's really the jeopardy that Proctor put himself in, because he was not forthcoming about the relationships that he had with, I call them McAlberts. I don't know if you call them McAlberts.
I do,
yeah. So, he has relationships with these families, some more robust than others. And then so does his wife and or sister, or maybe both. I mean, the rabbit holes are abounding.
Yes.
But you can go down all of these. By the way, that's one of the reasons I love your channel, because you do go down the rabbit holes and you'll pick a particular subject and say, let's talk about that. Like I was watching, you did a stream on Jen McCabe. Was it Jen and Matt McCabe? I think it was both of them, but you did the McCabes, and I was like, yes, I'm here for that. I want to hear just your thoughts.
There's so much. You could spend a lifetime on Jen McCabe, just her.
Oh yeah. But you were right though, because when you were analyzing her, she's really, I'm paraphrasing, but she's like really guilty in one way she's dealing with things and talking about things, and then she tries to explain things away in a very innocent way. Like she's a perfect dichotomy, and people get manipulated by that. I'm sure law enforcement has. I'm sure people like Kerry Roberts was manipulated by her. I'm sure John O'Keefe's mother was manipulated by her. And the one thing I really like, more than one, but one of the many things I really like about Turtle Boy, Aidan Kearney, is that he sees through this stuff. He's I'm not buying it. Like, you're not a normal mom. You've got real problems. And most people probably believe her in her life up until this point.
Yep.
Whether it's because of physical appearance or familial stature. So you look at all of these factors that weigh in. I don't know her history, but I thought I saw that she was like a top cheerleader growing up, or prom queen or something like that. And when you look at all these life factors that, weigh in and influence how people comport themselves. And then I start saying, okay, I see what Kerry Roberts was soaking up, that she was putting down, and Peggy O'Keefe, who was going through the immediate trauma of a loss. When you have a Jen McCabe who enters a story as a major player early on, manipulating a story, manipulating how witnesses are interviewed. And manipulating little nuances of the story and helping to create or manipulate a timeline. Suddenly one's memories blend with other people's memories. Suddenly people who shouldn't know certain memories are now sharing it amongst each other. I could go on and on, but in my opinion, she's the worst of the bunch out of all of them.
Oh yeah. I mean, right. So she's telling them everything, right? Which is everything that we had laid out on that timeline for her to tell them. Right. I mean, that's what she's saying in that text exchange to, the inside team, right? Which is Brian Albert and obviously her sister Nicole, and then Matt, right? So yeah, you're 100% right. That's what has always made Jennifer McCabe so just evil to the core is that not only does she, because I believe her, I think she actually had a crush on John. I think she had a little
Yes.
thing for him for sure. So I believe that she loved him. She of course would not have wanted anything bad to happen to him. However, to then take it another step, which is to try to put it on somebody you know who's innocent, that's what makes her like deserve anything she gets, right? Because how do you do that? How can you do
And
that?
doesn't that make you just want to dig in and really psychoanalyze it? Like if I did what you did for a living, I would spend weeks and weeks trying to analyze her,
Right.
just because I find her, Jen McCabe's behavior so abhorrent that, and really,
Yeah.
if you think about it, the 2:27 a.m. Google search, which I firmly believe happened, I know that is a disputed fact, but that 2:27 a.m. search
Mm-hmm.
is the catalyst for all of this. And they meaning the prosecution, they needed that to be explained away. And
Yep.
that was performed by Jen McCabe, who is this linchpin in the entire case against Karen Reed.
Yep.
So when the time comes for Karen to really tell her story, however that comes, whether it's a book, an article, a movie, a documentary, I would project and predict that Karen's going to spend a lot of time on the Jen McCabe piece to this whole story.
Yep.
Because you kind of know what you get from the Brian Alberts and you know what you get from the Brian Higgins. But the Jen McCabe's of the world, those are the ones you really got to watch out for, in my opinion.
And the thing about her that's also really interesting, and one of the ways that I think I have come to conclude that Google search, absolutely, she conducted that Google search, which, as a side note, again, speaks to how much power the DA's office has, because basically they just found somebody who was in their corner with Ian Withen, and he was able to explain it away. And when you start out with the charge, explain this away, find a way to take this and make it happen at a different time, he was like, oh, okay, and able to do it, right? But to me, there's absolutely no doubt. And what made her so guilty to me was the second search, where she tries to say the next day, that search happens while she's on the phone with Brian Albert.
Yes.
It's like at his behest that she makes that search, that she actually Google searches again, and of course makes the mistake or whatever, but actually tries to cover her tracks from the night before. So to me, yes, it's like all this collusion between her and Brian Albert, who she keeps he's with her during the interview with Michael Proctor. Like, he is basically right next to her the entire way, because he's directing, he's calling all the shots. If you watch that ABC interview right after the verdict, nobody in that group speaks until they all look to him when a question is asked. They look at him and then they speak, like they're looking for his permission.
Do you have experience with reading, and I'm using that very loosely, but reading body language when you're assessing individuals on a clinical basis? Because I imagine, if you do, which I presume you do, looking at that ABC interview that the McAlberts conducted, which it was on the coattails of the verdict.
Yeah.
There's a lot of fodder in there, whether it's looking to Brian Albert for tacit authority as to whether they can answer. They clearly all seemed scripted. They clearly all seemed extremely nervous, very defensive, not forthcoming. And people can pick up on that. An earnest heart is an earnest heart. And none of that exuded from any one of them. So that's why I really love your channel, because you go into the nitty-gritty of the behavioral pieces to these types of cases, which I I have a little bit of experience in assessing witnesses and cross-examining witnesses over the years, but it's your expertise that really intrigues me.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun, right? It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I think up until I became truly fixated, I mean, I've always been a true crime fan, Dateline, 2020, the whole
Me
thing.
too.
But it wasn't until this case that I started to double down and take what is just an implicit ability. I mean, I'm one of
Yeah.
those people that will get in a room with someone and not even, I've been doing this a very long time. I can't even tell you how I know what I know. I just walk away and I'm like, no, this is what happened.
Yes.
And I know it, right? And then when I started to get really specifically into this, that's when I sort of took my actual study to another level and started to try to get explicit about it. And that's like we could spend a long time on just that, because there's controversy in the science about the legitimacy of body language analysis because of debunked emotion science. And so there's like a whole discussion about this that we could go on forever about. But so I think what I'm going to do, I've actually decided that I'm going to make this my dissertation topic in some form or fashion. Yes, so that I can tie it all together. But it's a huge discussion. Body language analysis.
If you ever want to have me back and just continue chatting about particular nuances involving any of these characters, or as I too follow true crime like you do. If there's ever any case where you're like, this is an interesting topic, I would love to join you. I don't mean to invite myself back, but I really love like the Jersey/New York girl vibe. And I love the way that you just break it down the way you see it. And that's awesome. You might do your dissertation on that, which I'm going to read it. Definitely pass it along.
Well, you might end up participating in it once I pick the actual research side of it, right? I'm trying to find a way to be able to include YouTube in the actual final project, but we'll see.
You will. I'm sure that's a good idea.
Right? Isn't that a good idea? So,
yeah.
No, but of course, yeah. I mean, I would love to continue this conversation. It's so much fun to be able to just dig in really deep and to go through the nitty-gritty of it all, right? Because there's so much. And if you're someone who does dedicate the kind of time that we all do, and that lots of folks who are just in the chat do also, and are watching this, yeah, of course you want to get into the whole thing because you know the whole thing. You're in it all the time.
Yeah, and all of these pieces to this puzzle made this case what it is, like, because of all of the different personalities and the inability, and it, by the way, the personality also of the head district attorney, Michael Morrissey, who wasn't a fact witness, but he's someone, in my opinion, who had a penchant to get the win here, where after, I don't think he should have ever prosecuted her, but after that mistrial, a reasonable district attorney should have reevaluated and said, is this really worth the resources and time that was spent on it? And he not only doubled down, he quadrupled down and engaged someone out of the office, spent all of the money on those experts, etc., to debunk science, no less, and physics. So when we look at the personalities, I'm interested in all of it. The Lallies, the Brennans, the McLaughlins, all of the fact witnesses who were there that night, the people like Julie Nagel.
Totally.
Julie Nagel was like, I think, and show grace to the audience, show grace. But I feel like Julie Nagel, as a participant in this story, was really, as the kiddies say, like a nothing burger until she was needed. Until it was necessary for someone to have identified a, quote, blob on the lawn to kind of validate the existence of someone or a body being out there.
That's right.
And that's really probably not saying enough about her, but I'm interested in why that happened and where the elements of, whether it's peer pressure, fear, control, whatever those kind of ancillary fact witnesses who probably didn't know much about what went on that night, but then suddenly had to become more vocal as to what their position was on what happened that night, like the Julie Nagels of the world. That, you know, that interests me.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I love watching Microdots videos, because Microdots kind of, one video at a time, digs into some of the relationships that kind of went into this whole story, which is like a cornucopia of a bunch of different stories within it.
Absolutely. That's so funny you mentioned Julie Nagel, because that is what I have been analyzing. Maybe over the last 2 weeks, I've been distracted by the Adelson story, but that's where I'm at. I am at the Julie Nagel testimony, going back through it line by line to try to assess the answer to all the questions that you just asked, right? What is her role? How much did she know? Why does she ultimately decide to give this false testimony? How much of what she says is false? How do we know if it's false? So all of that. And turns out she's, you know, it's funny because you can listen on levels. I can listen and just like hear words. I can listen and kind of follow along and be like, yeah, okay, I'm buying it. And then I can listen and just hear it. And all of a sudden you just hear something and I'm like, okay, I hear this differently now. And then
I love that.
There's layers, right?
I love that. You had mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was, I think it was in an email where you were like, I was listening to a piece of this and I now hear different things. I don't listen on levels. So I really, I tend, in fact, sometimes I don't listen well at all. My kids will tell you that. But at the same time, I love going back and noticing things that maybe I missed. And in your profession, you're probably very good at deciding, okay, this is the way I'm going to look at this now, and I'm going to look at it differently this way. And it's so great that we all have the ability to kind of flash back through YouTube and other platforms to see changes, subtleties. Which, by the way, Adelson, like I know we're not talking about tonight, but girl, you're gonna call me and we're gonna talk.
We gotta
Adelson.
do Adelson. I'm like, oh, I have so much to say. Yes, because I've been really deep in the Adelson stuff to try to get at how much Wendy knows and all of that. And I think I finally have a theory, but it's taken me a long time to really just come up with a theory.
It's interesting because at some point I'd love to hear that. And I've been in the Adelson case since I guess right when Charlie or right after he got arrested. And I've been following it since. And I will say that's a very interesting case. Now, I know some people didn't know about it and only recently kind of pivoted towards it. But that case is so multifaceted.
I know
that it could just suck you in for days and days at a time. But at some point, I want to hear your Wendy theories because there's got to be more than I'm seeing.
Yes, we definitely got to have that discussion. And also I appreciate YouTube too, because I am so not a legal scholar. I know nothing about the law. I mean, the most I know is like what I watched on Law and Order when I was growing up, right? I mean, that's the truth. So being able to have this kind of dialogue where have this kind of expertise and can inform the discussion in a very different but skilled at a high level way is so helpful. Really helpful.
Thank you. And by the way, I muted myself because my dog was barking. I apologize if that interrupted your stream. I love that. And I really love being able to speak to another woman about these types of cases, because women, in my opinion, and I'm not man bashing when I say this, I think there's a reason why the major populace of true crime fans are female. And I think it's because we tend to be more interested in mysteries and emotion and solving problems. And, so I really enjoy true crime. It's a sad, sad thing that people are, have experiencing what they're experiencing. But, if I need to roll up my sleeves and watch a Dateline or a 48 Hours, I will. But what I've realized over the last few years is that those types of platforms, like the mainstream programs like Hours, Dateline, I'm missing some, they're just so edited and focused in certain directions. That's why I love following content creators, because you all bring that independent panache and flavor to the analysis.
Wow, was that a huge statement, what you just said? I mean, yes, and I think the Karen Reed case, in many ways, not just with what you're describing, like the 2020 and NBC and, just like the major legacy channels on both sides, I would say, on all sides. I think that's why we're all moving away from cable network and cable news and all of it, because we're tired of getting like the polished, editorialized version of reality, right? We want the truth.
Yeah, I love that. That polish is probably a good word for it. And it's great that, you all can kind of walk through segment by segment of a particular person's testimony and say, let's really analyze this, because that's something as a busy attorney, we don't always have the chance to do. And that doesn't mean that you have all the time in the world to do it. But for someone like me, if I'm like Liz, if I'm in my own trial and I'm eliciting testimony from someone on one of my criminal trials or civil trials, I'm hearing what I'm hearing, registering what I need to, but sometimes I don't have the opportunity to analyze. And the same happens with the true crime cases I follow. So I like the unpolished, unvarnished truth from people who just bring that independent commentary. And then that's where I really embrace the chats, having been and still am a chat surfer, because we get to see the whole panoply of everyone else's views too.
Yes. It's like the jury always, like having access to like the jury in any conversation about any content or any context at all the time, which is really cool. So I mean, this is endless. We could talk forever. I so appreciate you giving us time tonight. So
It's
awesome.
my pleasure. I wish I had more time for you. I'm going on a little trip, but if you ever want to have me back, girl, I consider you a new friend, and I love what you do. I respect it greatly.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to tell everybody I can. They got to follow this channel. It's
Thank
one of my
you.
new
I
favorites.
appreciate that. And we'll have you back very soon. I'm going to hold you to that, Nan. So,
Thank you. I appreciate it. And to your audience, thanks to all who showed up for my role, and I'm sure you'll stay on. But and thank you for donating to the channel, because every little bit helps. I try to do that whenever I can as well.
Me too. Thanks, Nan. Thank you so much.
Have a great night. Take care.
Have a great trip. Bye. Okay. Wow. So interesting, right? Thanks to Nan for coming on, and thanks to everybody for being here for it and participating in the discussion. There's so much that I, wanted to ask her, so I could keep her here forever just with my questions, really about everything, right? And I'm such a novice when it comes to the legal system, when it comes to the law. And especially now we're watching this, this appeal by Proctor, and it scares the crap out of me. I know I feel much better now hearing Nan say, no chance. There's no chance that even the woman who's overseeing the hearing is already indicating, that she's not having it. And that brings me tremendous relief, because, I don't know what I would do if he actually was back on the job. And it's also helpful to hear from Nan that this is logistical. It's a step so that he can essentially take the next step, which is to try to sue, I guess, whoever, the Massachusetts State Police, to get some kind of damages or whatever, because of being unjustly let go from the job. However, it just seems like if anybody ever should have been fired from any job throughout the history of time, Michael Proctor is it, right? The most worthy of a termination, particularly from a service position where you carry a gun, right? And to actually hold the rest of somebody's life in your hands as a detective. I mean, it's like, I don't think I would trust Michael Proctor to clean my toilet, let alone actually investigate a murder, right? And that calls into question Brian Tully and his judgment for even allowing Michael Proctor to investigate this or to be a detective in any world at any time in any place. So, hopefully our new Colonel Noble in Massachusetts of the Massachusetts State Police is going to really try to make changes. Sounds like he's serious about it. Everybody's saying all the right things. The truth is we just don't know. None of us know, right? You don't know what's going to happen. And you don't know, like, to use Turtle Boy's words, ratchet. We don't know how ratchet it really is inside the state police, right? Are they all like this? Is every county in their homicide unit have a Michael Proctor and Yuri Buchanan and Brian Tully? I mean, it's horrible to think about. But at this point, I put nothing past Massachusetts and the Massachusetts State Police. It's horrible. It's unimaginable. I guess I'm naive for believing that it isn't this way. I mean, maybe it's stupid of me to assume that when a police officer takes your cell phone, he's not just looking for nudes, right? I mean, maybe that's my naivete that is coming out, but it feels like that's not what the cops should be taking your phone and doing. Now, the other thing that I just want to mention, I always forget to mention this. I think I mentioned it in a couple of videos at one point, but earlier on in my career, I was the counselor for a lot of the New York State, the NYPD, the New York Police Department. So when they would get in trouble, let's say they were, like Proctor and Kevin Albert drinking on the job, the first offense would be to have to essentially go to like the social work department for the NYPD, and then they would have to go to outpatient counseling. And so I would end up and, treating essentially all of these police officers. And the company that I was working for at the time had a contract with, with the city. And so I had all of these NYPD officers, males, females, that had been cops for, anywhere from a year to 25 years. And I loved them. There was a very specific culture that they were obviously engrossed in. The levels of bureaucracy, just hearing about that culture was fascinating. But they were like some of my favorite people in the whole world. I can't even describe that. There is something about, being a New York City police officer that is a big deal, right? I mean, it's an incredibly difficult job. I have tremendous respect for the police, in particular, after having worked with all of these guys and gals. And so it's really just horrible to hear it like a Michael Proctor. It's like devastating, really. And as Nan was saying, it's endless, right? I mean, we could spend truly like the rest of our lives just unpacking the injustices that were in this, that sort of swirl around the John O'Keefe case. I mean, it's just horrible, right? Absolutely horrible. So, like I said, I could have asked Dan a million different questions. A couple other things too, and we just didn't get to it because we ran out of time, that I wanted to sort of ask about are the civil recourses, right? So for Karen Read, I know that I'm sure most of you saw the interview that Alan Jackson and Karen Read were on Howie Carr. I think that was last week or 10 days ago or so. And, I think there was supposed to be some big announcement. I'm not sure that there ever really was. But I think what did come out of that conversation was that Karen Read is very seriously considering a civil case against potentially the Massachusetts State Police. That is interesting. Again, I don't know enough about the law to be able to speak to what those options are, but I think Alan Jackson made a couple of things really clear, which, for starters, was that you can't sue the DA, that the DA has total immunity, right? And again, and I think this is kind of one of the last points that Nan made, as someone who I used to watch the news all the time and, didn't really understand how polished, like even just to take Dateline as an example, how polished that was and how much they kind of, I don't know what's the word, have an opinion, how much they're pushing their agenda, whatever that agenda is, on their viewers. And that's so tough, and particularly with this case. And the thing that, and I think I said this to you guys last week on my live, where I was saying, if anybody knows someone who has a really strong opinion about Karen Read being guilty, that's not just emotional, that's not just, I don't like her, obviously she's guilty or something like that, but that actually has like a supported opinion with facts and evidence, I would love to hear it, because I just don't know what that opinion is. And I no longer have the ability to even fabricate what that opinion could be because of my meticulous, thorough, just digging through this evidence, right? So going through the telematics, listening, of course, to somebody like Arca or, all of the defense witnesses in the second trial, it's very difficult for me to imagine what that argument is. And then when you look at all the consciousness of guilt evidence from the people in the house at 34 Fairview, right? You look at the wiping of or deleting, destroying of the cell phones from Brian Higgins and Brian Albert. You look at Jen McCabe lying about deleting calls, deleting text messages off her phone. You look at the video tampering by everybody at the prosecutor's office. You look at the deleted videos from Michael Proctor. You look at the fact that there was never an investigation into anybody besides Karen Read, and even that was a shoddy job. So just, the layers and layers and layers of evidence that all indicate that Karen Read is innocent and that somebody else is responsible for this. And yet there is no active investigation into the death of this Boston police officer, an active duty Boston police officer who everybody hailed as this wonderful person and is just a really good man, a good human being. And, so because of the fact that the DA is just, comprised of incompetent fools, there's never going to be an investigation into the death of John O'Keefe. That's just ludicrous. It's insane. It's disgusting. It's deplorable. It cannot be this way, right? And yet, here we are. So, hopefully I saw in the chat, I think I saw that somebody was pointing out that Michael Morrissey is not going to be running. Well, not surprising. He's probably realized by now that he has absolutely no ability to win. And if you can't win, you can't fundraise, you can't get anybody to support you, then yeah, of course you're not going to probably run. So, I guess Morrissey isn't running, but then the question is, who is going to be taking over the DA's office? And what is that person's agenda? And how much difficulty does that person face? And that's another question. If anybody in the chat knows anything about this, I would love to hear. When a new DA comes in, can they clean house? Is it like a football coach where, you're like hired as the head coach by your ownership, and then you get to bring in all the assistants and all the coordinators that you want? Or do you have to keep whoever's in the DA's office? My guess is it's the latter, but I would be very curious to know that. So if any of you know that, and again, I am fully, able, willing to admit that I know very little about the legal system. Tragic. I actually, happily, I'm glad I don't know very much, because I never wanted anything to do with the legal system. So I'm grateful for not ever having to been involved. But yeah, so I hope that we get a DA who their first directive is to try to investigate the death of this police officer who died at 3 years ago, plus more than 3 years ago now. And then I guess I would also ask you guys, like, what what do you want to see, right? What do you want to see? What are the qualities that you even begin to look for in a district attorney? How do you know that, you know, how do you know that you're picking somebody who's a legitimate, a person who's going to make good on what they say versus just a politician like Morrissey so obviously is and was? It's scary. It really is very tough. And then I know that we are talking all things Canton, and we have been tonight, but you know, a lot going on too in the Adelson case. And I know that's a completely different topic, but I will tell you that I'm working actively on my next video, and in that video, I'm going to announce finally my educated opinion as to whether and how much Wendy Adelson knows and knew about the death of Dan Markell. It took me, when I tell you, you guys, I've been really trying like day and night to investigate that question for like a month now, endlessly, to try to get at how much she knew. And I've been all over the map with this question. I started out, oh, she's completely innocent. She had nothing to do with it at all. Now I'm on the other side completely, really. So, I've been all over the map with my opinion on it. But I think my next video on the Adelson case is going to be really interesting to all of you. So, and, if you have, so like I said, two things, I'm going to throw this out there for all of you guys. You can email me. Let me put my email up so you can see it. You can email me anytime. I love getting emails from you guys, no matter what they're about. I really, really appreciate it. I try so hard to get back to everybody. And if you haven't heard back from me and you have emailed me, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to. It just means that, I end up getting to the ones that are on the top first. And so sometimes people get buried, but I will get to it. And what I would say, two things. One, if you know or you have someone who is willing to have a discussion with me, who believes wholeheartedly that Karen Read is guilty and is willing to have a educated conversation without name calling and without just, basically being angry and yelling at somebody else, and wants to support their opinion with facts, let me know, email me, and I will absolutely, I would love to have that conversation. I just don't know anybody who is willing to do that or who really believes that. So I don't have anybody that I can even think of to ask that question. And really what I want to, and maybe I can reach out to some of the anti-Karen Read folks to try to have a conversation about it. Because here's what I need to understand. I need to understand, how do you so easily dismiss all the lying that all the folks that were in the house have done? Like, what is your explanation, for example, why Colin Albert just egregiously lies about having never been in a fight? Like, if you have nothing to hide, who cares how many fights you've been in? You didn't kill John O'Keefe. So what do you care if you tell the whole world that you've been in 1,000 fights? If I didn't hurt this man, so what if I got into a fist fight a year ago with some kid in my high school, right? It's only a problem if you're trying to hide something. So, but this is something that I need to find someone to have that conversation with, because I don't understand. I can't understand, and I really want to. If you haven't figured it out yet, I am somebody who needs to understand. It's like the sole driver in my entire existence. It's the driver of my being, understanding human behavior and the human psyche. That is why I am here talking to you now. That's why I'm so invested in the seeing justice for John O'Keefe. And it's why I've invested my time into the Adelson case, also trying to figure out who the hell are these crazy people, and did they really do this, right? So that would be the first thing. That's kind of, if you know somebody who wants to have that debate and is willing to do it without just mudslinging, basically, let me know. Email me and let me know. And the second thing was, what was the second thing? It'll come to me. The second thing was also going to be about the Karen Read case. But now I can't remember, so I'll have to get back to you guys on that. But my offer stands. I'm looking for somebody to have that conversation with because, I want to know. I want to know how the other side looks and thinks about this case, and know that I am going to be, as I said to Nan, releasing a whole analysis of Julie Nagel. So, that is on its way. That's what I was going to say. Right. So that's what I was going to say. My chat is lagging, which happens sometimes with StreamYard. So I can't see you guys right now that are chatting. That's why I haven't put you up. I don't see it. It's paused. Hopefully you can see me. If you have somebody else that you want me to bring on, somebody else that you think would be awesome to interview or to hear from, let me know. Email me. Obviously, there's some obvious, contenders. Like I would love to speak to Melanie Little and Mark Betterow and obviously Turtle Boy. So, but I would like to know from you, who do you want to, who do you think I should be speaking to? And who would you like to see me get to ask questions to about particularly seeing justice for John O'Keefe? And as always, before I go, there's one more thing that hopefully you guys can hear me. There's one more thing I want to make sure that you know. So we had our members only first ever Zoom call. It really was kind of a colossal fail for reasons that we couldn't foresee until it was underway. We're going to be doing and scheduling our September members only call. We're going to be doing it differently. We're not going to be doing it on Zoom. So if you want to participate in that discussion, if you would like to, it's a call-in show. So it's literally, it's not a video call, it's an audio call. So if you would like to participate in the audio conversation, email me and let me know what topic you would want to discuss. So this is us trying a different way to run this kind of audio call. We're going to be using StreamYard, a little different function on StreamYard than we are right now. But we're going to be using StreamYard so that you're not afraid to be on video. There will be no chance of being on video. It'll be audio only. But it was so much fun. I will tell you this. It was so much fun. And from the beginning, my desire has been to have the ability to talk with other people who have tracked this case, seeing justice for John O'Keefe from the beginning. It is really interesting. And you really get the sense that because we're all so used to sitting behind computers and typing and trying to communicate via words on a screen, when there is no gap in time, you can exchange so much more information so much more quickly. And I found that at the end of our first only Zoom members call, I had a to-do list. I still have not scratched off everything on that list of all of this evidence that I wanted to go back through because we were able to exchange ideas about what really happened to John O'Keefe so much more quickly. So if you want to have that conversation, you definitely do not want to miss our next members only. I'm calling it a Zoom call, but really it's not a Zoom call at all. It'll just be a conversation. So email me, let me know. Do you want to participate in the call actively? And what would you want to discuss? It is going to be super fun. It was so much fun the first time, even though we had some really serious technical issues. I still absolutely had a blast, learned so much, and we made a lot of progress in just uncovering stuff in this case. Because if you're listening to this, my guess is that you care deeply for seeing justice for John O'Keefe. Want to know what the hell happened on January 29th, those early morning hours of 2022. And the more that we are able to communicate with each other about it, the more likely we are to figure it out. So email me, be a part of that conversation. All of you that participated in the chat tonight, thank you so much for being here. You guys are amazing. I hope that I'll be back my normal time and place, 10 p.m. next Wednesday, as per usual. And who knows? who knows who our next guest will be. We'll definitely be having Nan back because she is amazing. To everyone participating in the discussion, thank you so, so much for your support. To Denise, the greatest moderator in all of the world, thank you for your support, for your assistance. And to everybody, enjoy your first week of September. And I will be back next Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Everybody have a great night, great rest of your week. Goodbye, goodbye.